Celeste here, giving you a warm welcome to a new episode of Sembrando Ideales. I'm here with our co-hosts, Dr. Carlos, Guillermo, and Yereni. And today is an episode that I've been looking forward to because it's about housing. We have two very special guests here with us. They are from our housing committee, and they are Anayenssy and Destinie. So I'm just going to pass over the mic over to them and have them introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Anayenssy, former student of Cal State Long Beach. I studied political science and Chicano studies. I work at a law firm that practices tenant law, and I've been working there since high school. So I've gotten quite acquainted with like tenant law, evictions, stuff like that. And I started the housing committee under the foundation, and yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about. And my friend Destinie is also part of it, so I'll let her introduce herself.
All right, thank you. My name is Destinie Brush. I'm also a former student at Cal State Long Beach, a political science student. Anayenssy and I actually met when I switched majors, and she actually got me a job at her law firm, and then we started the housing committee under the foundation together. So it's been really exciting, and we've really been able to help each other out and do something we're passionate about, hopefully to help the community. So
that's really awesome. We're really excited to have you on the show, and we're really excited to talk housing with y'all. But before we do that, did y'all? I just really curious. I want to know if y'all caught that boat parade like Trump thing, and I just wanted to know what y'all thought about that shit. I thought that was I don't even know what to say about it.
I haven't, so tell me.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I was kind of dead because one of my friends shared a meme online that said like Poseidon for Biden. Because it was like all the boats that were getting like capsized and stuff, and I was just like, it was so funny. I was like, I mean, I know we're all settling for Biden, but I was dead. It was really funny. All the way and stuff.
Okay, so here's what happened. So over the weekend, I don't remember what day it was, Friday or Saturday. Like there was this like Trump boat parade. So a bunch of boats, I don't even know where it was at, got together, and they were like small boats, big boats, fucking yachts, like, and they all like put up. I mean, like, I saw one boat that had like 30 Trump flags on it. Like, it was all high, right? And so at some point, like, all kinds of boats just start going. It's not even like slow. It's not even like a parade. You know, parades are slow. They all start like just basically going really fast. And the big boats start passing by the small boats and causing waves, and it capsized a bunch of boats. And so, like, there was basically in the harbor all kinds of like Trump flags and boats like sinking, and like it's been on the internet like all weekend. I've been seeing memes about it.
I saw a meme of that, but I didn't see it, so I didn't get it. There were like small boats that were like completely sunk with the flag. I was like, what is?
Yeah, and so it was basically like a bunch of Trump, like, you know, it was a Trump parade on boats. And a bunch of boats just capsized and like flew over. You can see like I was watching this morning. I was watching Michael Rappaport. He's an actor. He's done some decent stuff. And he was he was commenting while watching the video, and it was fucking hilarious. Like I just thought it was funny, and I just figured I'd ask y'all like what y'all thought about it, because I think it's actually very indicative of where we're at in the United States. Like, and you know, I saw one of the memes was about how the big, like, it's completely ironic that like the small boats were getting capsized by the like wealthy boats, like, you know, because boating is sort of a wealth thing, right? Like, you know, most working people don't actually have a boat, and even those that do, they end up being the small tiny ones, and so they're being capsized by the big boats, all in a space where they're trying to have some kind of solidarity with each other, even though they don't live in the same world at all.
I saw that one. I saw that movie.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was funny because, like, you know, it's where his campaign should be. It should be sinking. You know, his campaign. He as a person, as an individual, like, I'm sure his mental faculties are sinking. But like, I still can't believe that he's our president. I really can't. Can't believe that, like, and he's the epitome of white privilege if you think about it.
Like, I can't believe he's possibly going to be reelected.
And that's why when Destinie said, you know, we're settling for Biden, like, fuck, like seriously, we couldn't find anybody? Like,
No.
That's
you
a
know
whole
what?
conversation. 'Cause I was telling Destiny, like,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
telling her the other day where I was having like a mental breakdown. I'm like, dang, do I vote consciously? Do I just settle? Like, because to me, it's always been like, personally, like immigration rights, are such a big factor for me. And even like, I'm currently in the system doing stuff. And I've seen like firsthand how he really is affecting it. Like, it's slowed down, he's canceled stuff and all that. So it's like, dang, do I just like settle for Biden or do I vote consciously,
Yeah.
It's like, do you vote with do you vote with your values, or do you vote like pragmatically, which is kind of the only option right now?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I wouldn't say it's actually a pragmatic vote, to be honest with you. I'm a single issue voter on this one. Like, I agree with Anayenssy. Like, I've said this on the show before. Like, right now, like the only reason that I'm actually gonna waste a finger and waste some energy, like 2 minutes bubbling his name, is because the immigration issue is horrible. At the same time, I feel conflicted about that because he helped build it. He helped build the current immigration structure, right? It's just, like I don't know. I feel defeated when I talk about it. See, why y'all got doing this? I want to talk about stupid Trump supporter boats fucking capsizing. And like, because I think it's indicative of like who they are against their own interest. Like it's just
so dumb to me. I don't understand.
So true.
I wish y'all had seen that stuff. I think it would have been funny if y'all had.
I saw this meme that said that about the boat thing that said Mother Nature supports the revolution.
Yeah, there was actually one picture where like one of the waves, it looked like it actually kind of has a silhouette of a person, and so like it actually looks like Poseidon actually came out and capsized that shit. I've been posting it as Aquaman, like Aquaman for the
Aquaman for the people.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started on today's topic. So, how about we start a little bit? Y'all telling us a little bit about why you started the housing committee, and then what you want to accomplish with it, and we can have a conversation about housing in general. And I think it's. I mean, I have some points I want to make, but let's start with that.
Cool. So I guess I start. Well, okay. The housing committee, I really think just kind of stemmed from the urgency that I felt at the moment, because it's an idea that I've had for a while. I mean, Dr. Carlos knows that I've been in and out of organizations that are for tenants' rights. I've dabbled in that. I've had my own situation. So long story short, because I've been living on Beach for over 20 years in the same spot, one, I saw how gentrification was just occurring. Like I saw the changes in the city. All of a sudden, people want to be on Pine Street. If you're from Long Beach, nobody ever wanted to go there. Nobody wanted to go to.
Hold on, let me ask you a little bit about that. Like I know that gentrification is a concept that gets talked a lot about by people who we know, but like, can you explain it a little bit just so that if there's any listeners out there who don't know what it is, they can.
Yeah, so I think it's, in essence, you're changing like the usage of a space in a city for a different purpose. And what I mean by that, it's like we used to have, it's just a housing, it's a community, we make it, we have businesses that reflect who we are, that support each other. Whereas now it started being, okay, we're now making it like a business district. So we started bringing in businesses for a different demographic of people that don't look like the ones that live there. And where the housing, like the landlords, it used to be like just like a family that owns a building and you have some kind of agreement between us. It started switching to corporate type of landlord managing. And so obviously also with like the business and all that, rents are going up. People can't afford to stay there. And so it's like it's kind of a complex system. I feel like I have like a good definition in a book. But generally it's like when the city starts becoming more expensive to live in, the people are being pushed out.
And I mean, the word gentrification actually comes from the word gentry, right? Like to put gentry in, gentry was upper middle class, sort of a category under feudalism,
Mhm.
part of the aristocracy. And so, like, it literally means to bring wealthy people or wealthier people or people with more money into a neighborhood, and
Right.
to change the neighborhood to adapt to the needs of those people rather than the people who have historically been there. So, like, I
Yeah.
totally feel when you talk about when you're talking about sort of how Long Beach has changed over the last 20 years, like I can feel that because I didn't grow up in Long Beach, but I grew up in like the Harbor area, and I would come out to Long Beach in my 20s and like go party down Pine Street,
Mhm.
and it just looks very different than it did, right? Like people used to walk from their homes there.
Exactly.
I mean, even when I first moved to Long Beach, I remember I think we mentioned this on a prior episode. People used to go party at like the neighborhood I lived in was large, like a LGBTQ sort of hub, and people. I remember I had neighbors who would all like walk to Hamburger Mary's, and it was like 2 or 3 blocks away, and it got moved because of gentrification and the housing development. Like they're building giant like condos there,
Mhm.
and so like it completely changes the neighborhood, makes it more expensive to live in. I think that's the basic point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just sorry, Anayenssy, to stop. I just wanted to add to what you were mentioning because I have lived in Long Beach too, and I have seen that gentrification. So just to add to the whole situation that we're living in, like downtown area, as you mentioned, there was like a Walmart,
Mhm.
there's still a Ross, and there was like Nordstrom Rack, and it was like a few stores, and everyone from Central and even like sometimes West Long Beach would go there like on
Yeah.
weekends. Like that was the
Mhm.
place to go. And a
Yeah.
lot of our listeners, if you're from Long Beach, you know that you would go to downtown Long Beach and you would see your friends, you would see your neighbors there on the weekend. And what started happening, as Dr. Carlos mentioned, you would walk. If you lived close, if you lived within a 30, 15-minute distance, you would walk. But what we started seeing is that all of these pike outlets were created in that area, which like there used to be a bookstore there covering the whole down floor, and now it's like an Express and a Forever 21, in
Yeah.
that area. So what we started seeing was like, wow, it's like living in Long Beach, you're like, oh wow, that's so nice. Now we have like a Gap. Now we have like it looks nice. But then what you start seeing is that less people that you knew would go there because it was more expensive. And it was just, I guess it wasn't tailored to you. It was tailored to somebody who was wealthy. Even if it looks nice, what you're seeing also is not only the downtown area getting nicer, like looking visually nicer, but that area that work is being pushed upward downtown. So what
So
you're seeing is rents going up because of that.
Yeah.
so even we can investigate that concept of nicer, right? Like what like.
Visually.
Well, I mean, visually, like I drive by there and there's no one there. That doesn't look nice to me. That looks like an
Right. And it used to be packed.
empty apocalypse, like hellscape. That just like that has the veneer of like, well, at least the building is like clean, right? But like to me, like it used to be nice when there was hella people out and people were having a good time. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, and so people shouldn't be out. But even it's interesting to me because I'm older than y'all. To hear you say like, oh yeah, there used to be people at the Walmart and it's like well, that was part of the initial plan. So like what you considered as normal, like the Walmart, was actually like part of the process of the gentrification. So when they built the Walmart complex and everything around it, I forget what it's called. It has a specific name. Um, but they were actually trying to build and compete with like a LA Live type of situation. That was the vision they had for downtown Long Beach a long time ago. And so they built that, and then they eventually expanded the Pike outlets or the Pike area. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to take all this energy that was between Broadway or like First Street and like Third, and they wanted to see if they can expand it. And so they built the Uptown Long Beach area, but it wasn't supposed to be Walmart there. I don't know if y'all know this. Like they were trying to bring in Bloomingdale's, they were trying to bring in the high end stores. They were trying to I mean, like if you look at
Yeah, I saw for a while like the construction site. They always put like what's supposed to be there. I do remember that it was supposed to be like all these fancy, like like kind
yeah,
of stores. Basically, what happened at the Pike Outlet, but like
well,
over here.
not really, because the outlets were outlets, right? Like they're so I can explain that a little bit. So like anyway, there was this downtown. They tried to expand it, and like Bloomingdale's didn't come because they saw who lived around there.
Exactly.
Like it's not like what's that store in Costa Mesa? The really like the bougie like mall that's out there?
I'll go to that area.
South Coast Plaza, right? They were trying to do that. And then without understanding the context of the fact that the people that lived around downtown Long Beach were all working folks. Like, they worked at the port, they work in different areas, they work in like, service industry. And so like, so even if they try to open them, like people weren't going there because that's what people go to the South Coast Plaza for.
It's so weird with that too, that we used to have the free, I think the red bus, well, it was purple back then, and then it turned red. But that little
free transit?
Yeah. Because, all of us, like I said, we used to just walk everywhere. The Top Valley, which is not Top Valley anymore. RIP to that.
All right.
Walmart, all the stores that were grocery stores and stuff that were around there. My mom and I used to take it. Everyone basically in District 1, kind of like where I live on 10 Cedar Pacific, all the streets, would take it, and it will help us navigate through the whole downtown area, without having to carry the groceries from all over there. But even when I started noticing to me, like what I see as downtown now as a business district is like when they were doing the library, that whole park area, that's where all basically all homeless people were. But it was just, to me, I guess, growing up there, it was the norm. Like they were never it was not a scary thing. It was just, yeah, they live there. That's their section. I went to the library. It was free. Whatever, we do stuff, and you go study, and that was just the community. But even the bus, when I started seeing that they were constructing the whole library section, and then the outlets, and then Pine, where we had the AMC and all those little stores, food stores, and food little places and stuff. When that construction started happening, all of a sudden the route of that bus changed. So they no longer, and I remember hearing rumors. So this it's not factual, but rumors are like, no, the bus drivers don't like people from there, or if there's no use, nobody uses the buses. Nobody in that downtown area is using them. Like for my streets, nobody's using them. I'm like, no, we are definitely using them. But the route changed. All of a sudden they're going now down to Ocean Boulevard and all those beach houses area.
Yeah, and I think this is the frustrating part about gentrification is that one it's rooted in really catering to a moneyed class.
Exactly.
So gentrification is a process that displaces people. It's a process that makes it expensive for people. There's a really excellent TED Talk on this. Just Google TED Talk gentrification. A woman talks about how it affects communities. So even if you're allowed to stay, you're not staying in your community because it changes around you, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the things that frustrates me, and you can track this to when the mayor was still a councilman. I think he was what was his district?
District 1.
Yeah. So it's that district that you're saying that changed. It changed because of people like him who aren't from Long Beach, who had lived in Long Beach for 5 years before he runs for office in Long Beach. I don't know if it's 5 exact years, but I remember he was a student at Cal State Long Beach. He's originally from Ontario, I think. And he comes in with his own vision of what he wants Long Beach to be. And then he carries it out over the next 10 years as, he becomes a city council person and then he becomes the mayor, using his intersectional background as sort of a veneer to vote for him and pushing this really neoliberal agenda for the city, which is a city that privileges, and this is the key piece of gentrification, it privileges the rights of tourists and or potential taxpayers rather than the people who are currently living in the city and currently paying taxes. So you're trying to make a downtown area hub for tourists to come and spend their dollars because you're trying to raise tax revenues. That doesn't happen because what happened in the middle of all of this gentrifying process was the 2008 financial crisis. And so because of the financial crisis, people were strapped for cash. The downtown area goes quiet for a period of about 5 years. It was barely starting to pick up right before the pandemic. He has all these empty storefronts in the Pike area. He's trying to sell them to somebody. So what he does is he makes sweetheart deals with the Gap. He makes sweetheart deals with Nike. He makes sweetheart deals and allows them to basically come in to these companies to come in and set up outlet stores without paying any city taxes. That's what happened. And so, even the building of new developments in the downtown area, it's about sort of catering to people who don't live in Long Beach. You're trying to bring people from the outside in to raise tax revenues. Let me tell you a sort of quick story. The thing is, if you have money, where are you trying to live if you're going to live in Long Beach?
By the beach.
I live by the beach. You're not going to live downtown. Nobody wants to live downtown if you have money. So it's a backwards ass like development plan to build like luxury condos in the downtown area. Yeah, they have nice views, but if you have money in Long Beach, you're trying to live in Naples. You're trying to live like in Belmont Shore, like closer to the beach, because that's the whole allure of Long Beach, right? And so, like, it's all these political, economic contexts that really lead to sort of the current crisis situation, and that's kind of why we're having this conversation. I read an article the other day that said that there's 40 million people in the United States currently facing eviction, because not just because of the current pandemic moment, but because of all these economic processes that have been happening, and this is sort of just the cusp of that. That like cities have focused on luxury developments rather than housing individual people. Anayenssy, I'm gonna put you a little bit on blast. Like I love some of the times where you're like you're publicly arguing with the mayor on Facebook. He doesn't respond anymore because he has a national profile now. But like I remember you would post on his stuff about housing, and he'd get all like bent out of shape and like
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy that all this him and put Lena on it because she was my district representative.
Well, hold on. There's a connection there too, though, because Lena was his staffer.
Oh,
so
for sure.
when he was a city council member for District 1, Lena was like a person on his staff.
Yeah,
so there's like a legacy there. Lena, I have mixed feelings about Lena. All power to her.
I know exactly how.
I have, all power to her. She's a Latina leader. I think she has the capacity to actually lead. And I think in City Long Beach, she held back because she was his friend. Like, I hate this friend politics nonsense. Like,
well, that's what I mean. But I feel like, I based it off like an actual direct situation I had with her, right, with housing in particular. But yeah, like all of them were talking about like, well, we're doing this for the city, we're doing that, but like in my building, right, where I used to live, I was there since I was 3, so I was 21 by then or something. My building in front, other buildings right next to these were people who have been there for over 30 years. Like it wasn't just it was just newbies that were renting. Like this is like a solid community with foundations. When this whole gentrification thing's happening, right? Like we said, they're trying to improve the apartments. They're trying to make the city look better, quote unquote, or nicer, whatever that means, right? So they kicked us all out.
Which let's be clear, what that means is just sticking.
That means they don't want brown people. They don't want working class people. They don't want the hood people up in there.
Yeah. So what they do is that they buy one can of paint, they paint the building like.
Yeah, and everybody knows the buildings. You put a little thing on it.
And also, you started seeing your buildings get painted, right? Like after years of being like the same, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, what?
I moved like just one building over, and it honestly does break my heart every time I pass by because I'm just like, dang, that's my home.
What? Even you can spot it because of the style, right? It starts looking hipster. They start for some random ass reason just putting like planks of wood on the side of a building, and like that's supposed to be a visually appealing thing. Like they start putting fences that like instead of going up and down, they go sideways.
Yes.
But they don't deal with like all the internal problems of the building. They don't deal with mold. They don't deal with.
I have so much intel on that part.
They don't deal with all the like.
Oh yeah, it's just the outside.
Paint the outside.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make clear like what this improvement really means. It means nothing. It means a slap of paint, and then they charge you an extra $1,000 a month for that.
Yeah, it's all cosmetic stuff.
Oh, go ahead, Destiny.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna. It's all cosmetic. Like they're not fixing any of the if there is an issue in there, which often there could be or there might have been, but it doesn't matter. They didn't care about that. They just care about appearances.
Yeah, and by nicer, I mean because people's reaction is like, oh wow, it is cleaner, it's painted, it hasn't been painted. That's what I mean by nicer. I don't mean better in the sense of it's helping us because it's not. It really isn't.
It's not. Right. Well,
and then back to the point of like it part of it looking nicer means also who gets to live there. And
exactly. We don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
But no, it's okay. But basically, I forgot where I was going with this. But so with like the mayor and Lena and all that stuff. So like my personal experience with it, right, was I've for years, I've seen the changes, and then I go to college and I learned about it, and then I started seeing like, okay, well, it's coming, it's catching up. And my building and like two other buildings like right next to each other got bought out by this corporation. My first thought was, okay, rent's going up. And then it did go up a little bit. And then my next thought was like, oh no, here we go. They're going to kick us out. They're going to renovate. And that was exactly what happened. They sent a letter out, hey, we're going to start renovating, quote unquote, which is, again, painting and stuff. And then, I started sending out some complaints because the communication was all in English. Most of them, I think, or all my neighbors were Spanish speakers. So they didn't even understand what the heck was happening. And then there was like a lot of issues that were occurring, like the doors were not even working because they're renovating, all this stuff. And then slowly they were just like, all the bottom floors were like, all right, you have 60 days to move out, no reason. And it's like, if you want to apply again, you can. They doubled the rent. And so
what does that mean doubled? Like, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so literally they doubled what you paid of rent. So at that time, it gets like, mind we were like, people started renting maybe early 90s. So whatever that rent was, it increased like just a little bit. So, we were paying around, I think, $750, $800 right around there. And when they said, okay, you can try to rent again or apply, it would have been $1,600. So it's literally double of what you were paying before. Which
and like these are people who are on limited income. They're people who like make up the
seniors. There are seniors who don't have. They're literally on what they get from the government.
Yeah, even service workers who all perform essential functions, who we're right now in this economy relying on to keep our economy running. But like all of a sudden, it's like well, you don't get extra money. You're not getting a bonus pay or hazard pay because you're working in a pandemic. Like, and this is obviously prior to the pandemic, but still, like in that context, like who can come up with double the rent?
No, that's what I'm saying, and so that's basically that's the reality of what renters go through, right? And so I saw that. I kind of did talk to my neighbors because I was like, hey, like this is gonna happen. It's gonna happen to the top floor. Like it's just like the what is the divide and conquer type of tactic. And so, anyways, through all this, I was going to city council meetings. I met with I was talking to like Robert and Lena and stuff like that. My issue with Lena came about because I was working with another building that was the same situation happened, but that was like seniors, disabled, all kinds. Like those folks did not have a way. They were going to go homeless, basically. So we went to the city and kind of said, hey, Lena, this is your district. This building is on Pacific. My building's on Cedar. The other one's on Chestnut. This is all like downtown area. You know what's happening. What are you going to do about it? And she was kind of like, okay, I'll see what I can do. Oh my God, the seniors, doing the whole scene of like, I can't believe it. And then when it came down to it, I forgot someone from her staff, I don't even know. I think her husband has like some kind of connection with the landlord stuff. The point is,
her husband is part of the Downtown Long Beach Association, which represent businesses.
Okay, there we go. So, basically she came up with this like contract of offering the senior folks, okay, who are going to have to pay for a new building. You have security deposit. You still have to end up paying the 30 days from your building, all that money. Okay. She offered $2,000 and
rental assistance, right?
Yes, $2,000 as here you go. So you can rent another place. Like I said, security deposit, first month, that's ridiculous. And then
let's put this into perspective. So like you're talking about seniors who again are on limited income, right? Social Security.
And disabled folks.
So like they can't move somewhere else and pay current rental market prices. They can't. And then it takes years to get on what's that, Section 8. So like exactly where are you gonna go? Here's some crumbs. Like $2,000 ain't gonna do shit for you. Like $1,000 of that is spent on actually moving your stuff because you're an old person and you can't move your stuff yourself, so you gotta hire somebody.
Oh, that was a whole other situation.
Yeah. So like yeah.
So to me, that was like super disrespectful, like a slap in the face. Like what? And then apart from that, what these landlords do and like what that contract that she offered do, they add this little clause at the end that's like, all right, you're accepting $2,000, you can now sue me ever again and for future litigation, stuff like that. Which what we do is we do sue because these buildings, like we know, are old. They are run by slumlords. They don't fix it. You're living with roaches. You're living with pest infestations, molds. Like you're ending up, most out of households that I've known, you fix your own issues because the landlords aren't fixing it. One, because you have you're paying low rent, right? So hey, don't be, you want to fix that, I'm gonna raise your rent, stuff like that. So that was my situation. So I told her, like, that this is such a bad agreement. That you're adding this little clause to it. So anyway, she got mad and was like saying, I can't believe that this person, me, told them not to take it. Such a disrespect. And I was like, girl,
that's the part that pisses me off the most, is that they expect you to be happy about it.
Yes.
Like, here, let me kick you out your damn house, your home. Think about the concept of home, right? Like the place you grew up in, where you have all your memories, where you have all your community. You already know your neighbors, you're used to them, and then you, like, overnight, like, sorry, you got to get the fuck out. And here's $2,000, and you have the fucking gall to be mad that I'm giving you $2,000. Like these people, that's what pisses me off about them, is that they can't understand, like, you know what? Shove your $2,000 somewhere else. Like, yeah, I won't say where, but shove it somewhere. Like, I want my home. I want my community. My community is worth way more than $2,000.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, I think that was my first reality check. That as a renter, you don't own, like, your property. That's not your home. Like, you make it a home, but it's not yours. It could be taken away at any time. And I think that's something, maybe a conversation you've had too, about why why I'm interested in, like, the community land trust stuff, because it's just crazy to me. Like, in 30 days, my home for like 20 years was like gone. And just because of, these corporate managements that they didn't want to deal with us, basically. Like,
well, and all that matters to them at the end of the day is profit, right?
Yeah.
So because of this is sort of Anayenssy had a conversation with me, and I know she's been involved in housing issues for a long time. And here's another thing too, is that, like, there's great organizations out there who are doing great work on dealing with today's context and helping renters in the current, like, environment where the laws aren't made for us. It's really ridiculous that Long Beach is actually the people that live in Long Beach, 60% of the people who live in Long Beach are renters, but there's no renter protections. So, like, the majority of the people in Long Beach are actually at the whim of this stuff, even though they are the majority. And so we had a conversation about, like, how there's a gap, like one, organizations that are doing housing work are doing awesome work, but they're understaffed, and there's, like, not a lot of money because the needs are just so high. Like, there's so many people that are undergoing this process of gentrification all over the city, all over the state. I mean, housing in California as a state is fucking problematic. And so she came to me, we had a conversation. I was like, well, let's do something about it. Let's put together, at least during the current context of the pandemic, like I mentioned, 40 million people are facing eviction because they couldn't go to work anymore because the pandemic, a lot of their businesses shut down. And so people are behind on their rent payments, and they haven't done anything to, like, forgive that. All they're doing is extending the deadline. But every month that passes means that's another month of rent that you didn't pay. And so, like, this is actually some orgs are actually going to courthouses to stop landlords from filing the paperwork to evict people. So they're creating blockades around those buildings, so that if you don't file the paperwork, you can't evict people, right? Because there's an actual process. And maybe we can actually get into that a little bit. So one of the things they said, well, a lot of people don't know their rights. Let's just start with that. Our long-term goal, though, really is, like, to get ahead of this, right? Like, we need to stop fighting back against stuff. Like, they have us so exhausted, always fighting banks back against them. They set the agenda. Like, we got to move towards a model where communities learn how to learn and can own their own housing, right? Not the traditional single-family house, but, like, buildings together, cooperatively, the community land trust, that stuff. Like, that's our long-term goal. But the thing that y'all developed is said, hey, very basic, like, we need to get more information out about evictions because people don't know what their rights are. And so y'all put your heads together, and then y'all came up with this evictions guide. Y'all want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit? I think I can talk about.
No, it's okay. I guess I could start a little bit. A lot of the grunt work was done by Anayenssy. I just did the the graphics. So, but she's the one who has a lot of experience in it. But yeah, it was just a lot of a few slides. We were trying to make it like easily accessible, trying to make it compact. We had it looked over by a couple of eviction attorneys so we could be as accurate as possible, especially because right now there's a lot of rules and things are changing kind of constantly. Like they're just the Assembly Bill 3088 just came out. Like Newsom literally just signed it, I think like a week ago, like exactly. But anyways, we try to put together a few like basic ideas, like how evictions happen. Like a 3-day notice isn't an eviction. It's usually that's like kind of the first step. So just like the steps, trying to make it as clear as possible for people to see like what's going to happen, the progression of different forms, different papers, different notices.
Yeah. And I think also because from my experience with the firm that I'm at, a lot of the times, it's scary, but it's reality. They were getting threats like a 2-day paraquat, like if you don't do this, the police is coming the next day. Or, immigration status gets put as a threat. Your home being locked out gets put as a threat. But there's certain, it's a process. And so I feel like if people are informed of like how it actually happens, it's not it doesn't happen like in one day, you have to get the warnings, you have to get this, you have to get that. Then, if you look at our guide, like that's basically the process of an eviction. So
you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So,
like to inform our listeners.
I need my slide real quick.
The whole process.
But basically, it's like the 2 days. If you don't pay rent for whatever reason, you get usually the two days paraquat, which would be the first start, because that's the landlord has to give you that warning. Like he cannot evict you if he doesn't give you that, because that's your basically warning you have this time, right? The ideal situation would be you would pay it within those next 2-3 days. If you don't, then the next part is the the 60-day notice that, okay, well, now you have 60 days to move out because of that. Or if you are paying your rent and they're going to renovate it, then that would be the first step. It would be a 60-day notice to move because they're renovating the building. And so then, you basically have 60 days to move out. If you don't, then you're going to go, it's likely you'll go into an eviction process, which then, you have to make your choices of, are you going to get legal representation, which is what we always recommend, or you do self-representation. But again, like when you're going through an eviction, you have your credit to look out for. If you didn't pay rent and that's the reason you're in the eviction process, then you have that money you still owe, so you can be sent to collections. So there's a lot of stuff that is at risk. So when you get legal representation, those things get handled. And there are like I understand that any fee is expensive, but they're not that expensive. They kind of work with your income and they try to figure out a way that's best so you can afford that, because obviously you're not going to win that much money from it. I think usually end up getting maybe $1,000 or $2,000, but you don't have to pay what you owe most of the time. You don't end up having to pay the old rent. Your credit gets cleaned. The eviction won't appear when you have to rent at another place. Whereas if you maybe don't take the right steps, all those things can appear, and you will be put in that situation.
Yeah, it kind of like all stacks on top of each other, and it can get so much worse if those things don't end up getting taken care of. Because then if you have an eviction on your record, you can't find a new place to live. You still have to owe the other place. So where are you going to sleep in your car for this time while you're still trying to work and trying to pay off this other loan, like, or the other stuff you owe? Like it gets so complicated.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely expensive. It's an expensive experience. It's hard. Just as someone who had to go through it the correct way and all that, it's ridiculous. I don't even know how we made it, to be honest, but so I understand that it's hard, but there are options out there. Also, I like to emphasize that in California, at least, we do have an order that protects against like immigration status being used as a threat, because your immigration status doesn't matter whether you're documented or not. You have the same rights, like tenant rights here as everybody else. In fact, it's illegal for them to threaten you with that. So I think that's important to know, because I honestly didn't know until I started working with them. And there are situations where people have gotten threats with that. So
I mean, that's something that definitely happens.
And for those listeners who like haven't looked at it, I don't know if Anayenssy and Destinie, they did a toolkit that's available on Instagram. at Econ Democracy, and there's also you recorded them, right? The workshops with attorneys answering questions about evictions. So this is all really great information. And if you want like more to know more, there are those workshops and those videos and toolkits available for everyone at our Instagram.
Yeah.
And also,
and more than that, we recently were able to raise $1,000 to actually print them. So the housing committee is working on printing them so that we can sort of actually go out and and sort of engage community members, obviously social distancing and safe, but in a way that sort of we can inform them, because we know that most of the people sometimes who need the information are the ones who have the least amount of access. Right? One, it would help us out if you share the toolkits on your own. So go to our website, our Instagram, and share that and get that information out. It's in English. We have an English version and we have a Spanish version. And make sure that it gets out there. But we are going to be printing some, and it would be cool to actually do a couple of videos too on them, like short little videos where we use the toolkits and we explain that. And we're working with that. More importantly, though, if you want to get involved and you want to help with housing issues, and this is really like obviously stopgap, right? We're trying to figure out a way to help people, 40 million people who might potentially lose their homes and become homeless in the United States. The whole housing structure, like in our society, is fucking backward. I'm sorry for the F-bomb, but it's fucking backward. It's based on markets. So like let's actually think through that. This is one of the things that like I can't believe that sometimes people don't understand that housing. One, we believe housing is a human right, but our current model of providing housing is completely inefficient, wasteful, and fucking backward. So in order for housing to be affordable, you have to have an excess stock of housing that is unused. Think about that. So because it's based on market equilibrium, supply and demand, if there is more supply than you have demand, then it's cheap. So that means that you have to build a shit ton of extra housing that no one's going to need or use in order for rent to be affordable. That's fucking backwards to me. That's ridiculous. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of person power and labor. Technically, actually, right now we have enough housing to house everyone. We don't need actually more housing. There's housing in the United States to house every single homeless person in the United States. The problem is that we have a system of privatized housing. And I get into arguments all the time with people, and they don't understand my position. They think that I'm mean because I think that all landlords as a class, as a structure, is exploitative. I post this shit all the time, and I always get questions from some people who are well-meaning people. Like, I know these people. It's not like they're not Trump supporters. They're not like irrational folks. But this is how normalized it is. That it's so normalized to think of landlords as just another needed part of our society that we don't question it. And then I reply, you know what? I'm sure that some people at some point in history said the same thing about kings and even like slave owners. And then like when I say slave owners, people are like, how can you say it's the same thing? I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm saying structurally, like I'm sure people were like, well, they're nice, Like this one is not all kings are bad. Not all aristocrats are bad. I'm sure there were some nice ones here and there, but as a class, landlords are people who make a living off of the labor of other people.
Yeah.
Me and everybody who I rent. So everybody who lives in this building, we work really hard to earn an income. And every month we give a third of that, at least a third of that, if not more. Some people pay way more than that. It's closer to half for a lot of people. Half of our income so that the lady across the street can live in the nice house that she lives in and then come over here during the day when she's not working, she's not, and like complain about whether we have too much stuff out, outside or like, it doesn't look nice or whatever. Like, so it's wasteful, period. And as a class, I think landlords are extractive. It's a parasitic relationship. They're not the ones that are providing me housing. If my income goes to provide their lifestyle, I'm providing them housing. Collectively, we all renters are providing them housing. So long term, our goal is to like inform more people about collective forms of land ownership and housing ownership, like collective forms of owning our communities together through community land trusts. But in the meantime, people are facing this very real sort of crisis of evictions. And every month, we're like, people are on edge about whether or not the cities that they live in or the state that they live in is going to do anything about like the rent that has been due for like since March. And 2 weeks before it's due, they say, okay, we're going to extend the deadline for you to pay it back. But like, you can extend the deadline 3 years for us to pay it back. People aren't working right now.
It's ridiculous. This pisses me off. You're getting me that.
Yeah,
I get so so hurt about it. Like I literally cannot like process that. Like, what makes you think that like we're gonna pull money out of air? Like, people are not working. Like, rent was already hard to pay beforehand. When you are working 2 jobs, whatever you're doing, income is already bad. So, but like, to afford the expensive rents that we have, and then the pandemic happens, and now people are literally not working, or they're working like barely working, and it just makes no sense to me why you think that now in this situation, just because you extended it for like 3 months or so, people are gonna all of a sudden have all that income. But I think also, it's, to me, as someone who like was more into like immigration, right, criminal justice, all these like race and the kind of issues, I never saw how. I mean, not ever, but I don't think I saw housing as such an issue that we can all kind of connect with. And I think it's important for us to note, like, this is such a big issue in all of our lives, whether you're, Latino, Black, senior, or whatever, disabled, unemployed, all that stuff, because we all are part of some kind of housing system. And the fact that, like you said, a third or half of our income is going to that. And then you say, well, why don't I have money for books? Why don't I have money for college? Why don't I have money for food? Why don't I have money for all these other stuff? Well, because most of your money is going to, your housing situation.
And that's the thing. Where does it go? It doesn't go, like, they don't make any new updates to my building. It's not going to like the maintenance of the building like that much.
Yeah.
Our building has one fucking water heater in the whole building for like 30 residents. Like, it's not going to that. It's going so that the lady across the street, it's literally, I'm not lying, she lives across the street, so that she can eat and her daughter can go to college and whatnot. And people don't understand that as a structural relationship, right? People are like, oh, she's a nice lady. Like, the niceness or meanness of your landlord is not the point. The point is that a structural position, these are people who make profit off of providing terrible housing for residents, and they expect us to be happy about it. They expect us to like kiss their ass, like they're
they're doing us a favor because we get to live in here and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I feel also there's like a history of brown and Black folks living in uninhabitable conditions, and that's just the norm. Like, we just think that.
And why too? I mean, the whole history with redlining in Long Beach. Why is there more Hispanic, like brown and Black people in Central and West Long Beach? Like, they're it's not just coincidental.
Where our air conditioning like not good. Where there's all the toxins.
I mean, it's heat. I mean, people like it. It's hot. And like, people feel like some people live in ACs and like, or have cooling centers or pools nearby. Like, that's not something that everyone has.
Yeah, like I never knew about that.
I'm a fan here.
The whole building is there. Yeah, but I think that's also.
That's expensive to keep it on.
Yeah,
just open some doors and hope there is like a breeze. That so many people.
We didn't even get into the.
That's also like something that as a people we need to start realizing, like, that's not normal. Like, it's not normal for us or our people to live in those conditions. Even if you are paying cheap rent, who cares? Like, rent shouldn't even be expensive, but that's still a contract. Like, you're signing a contract. If it's cheap rent, it doesn't matter. For a conditioned building that's being able to be livable, a habitable condition. So I think, as working in the section that I work in, tenant law, I'm always shocked at the way that our people are living. And I can't explain, I can't talk too much about it, but just like, if you would see the pictures and the pest infestations and all this, and then people are with like rashes, people, like little kids can't focus on school, food is being thrown out, all this stuff. And just because, one, they're scared to ask for repairs because the rent will go up, or they're scared because of immigration status, or they're just scared because they don't have that, they have like a language barrier or education barrier, whatever. So again, I think that's where I wanted to do the toolkit and inform people of like their rights, and they shouldn't be scared to get that stuff, because there are code enforcements in Long Beach, and if the landlord's not with it, then they get sued. I mean, they get cited, and you can sue as well. So there's just a lot of things that I think are just too normalized, and like conversations like this are cool because you can start talking about like, well, what's the reality of living in a space that's getting gentrified? What's the reality of a third or half of your income going to rent? What is that? What are the other effects to that? And just, all of that.
Yeah, and I think what we've highlighted in this episode, at least, is the frustration that I guess as Anayenssy, like I feel you living in Long Beach, like it's not just you and me feeling this, or and any surrounding areas. I'm pretty sure everyone feels this, but it's a frustration that a lot of people in Long Beach have, and it's a reality that we're living in, and that we don't see anything being done to help us. So thank you, honestly, Destiny and Anayenssy, for making that toolkit, for informing people of rights that they don't, like a lot of people are not even informed that they have, and for making them in Spanish, and for specifying that even if you're undocumented, you have tenant rights.
Yeah.
For doing that.
And it's, we didn't need it right now more than ever because we have an eviction tsunami that's supposed to be coming.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think if there's an eviction ban that it would prevent a housing crisis, or what's your take on that?
I don't think so. I think that everything that's been done so far has just been pushing back the problem. I think that even the most recent bill that was just passed last week is just putting it off again. Even some of the new rules, I actually have them written down in case we want to go over them. I like spent a bunch of time because my neighbors just got threatened the other day with like, they were like, you need to pay rent, like the laws change every day and all this like really bad stuff. And I was like, that's not even true. Like I heard about it and I like went over to their house with my mask on, don't worry. But and I was like, hey guys, just so you know, and I like emailed a bunch of articles and stuff like that, because it's like, it really can't happen, but it's still eventually due. And that's going to screw over the renters. It's going to screw over the landlords, even though I don't agree with landlords as like a structure like Dr. Carlos talked about, but still it's not good for, and no one's winning.
I think they're just scared, to be honest. They're scared to say, we forgive rent, life can go on, there is really no need for it, and situations like life continues. I think they're just scared to do that. They don't want to admit that there's really no need for us to be paying so much rent when people are not working. Like it makes no sense to me. Like it's
a failure of like imagination. Like you can't imagine a system that you could be compassionate and you can just forgive it, forgive mortgages, forgive rent. It's such a simple solution. Like just do it.
Keep pushing it back. Okay.
And I think it's even smart economics. Like if you think about it, if you forgive people's rent, that's $6,000 or whatever they owe since March, $8,000 that they can put back into the economy and spend. Like working people are going to spend their money. That's what we do. Like we don't have a lot of extra money to save it or to invest it. Like we're not trying to go out there and leverage companies and buy securities. That's not what working people do. Working people they take care of themselves. They use whatever they can, and most of the time we don't have a lot of money to save. So if you put money in people's pockets, they're going to go out there and spend, and that's going to have a positive impact on the economy because that's going to create jobs. And that's the part that people don't understand. Aside from my feelings, and they're not feelings. It's not like I dislike them as people, as individuals. It's not feelings about landlords. It's like not a theoretical. It's like conceptual perception of the class itself. Like the fact that we still call them lords. I mean, fuck, don't get me started on that. Like they're part of the aristocracy, right? That you get to live on their land. Well, how did it become their land to begin with? They either stole it, or they inherited it, or in the context of the United States housing market, they got it through red land. They got it really cheap a long time ago. They got it really cheap a long time ago when people of color were left out of the market or like pushed out of the market. So there's all kinds of things that we can talk about on the show. Maybe we can wrap up with that. Is there anything else that y'all want to inform our listeners, our viewers about housing? We can we can bring y'all on again and sort of see what y'all are up to, and y'all can let us know how.
I think just to finish the question though, because I think was it like if we stop evictions completely, do you think the crisis will still continue? Is that your question?
Yeah, like the eviction ban. Like because we hear talks that they're trying to put in like an eviction ban. as a whole, but they're not. They're no. There's no clause that really.
I would allow for that. Yeah,
Right.
but you have to be able to kick someone out, right? If they're a bad tenant. I feel like even like that, it wouldn't work because I feel like you would just go homeless even quicker because if you can't pay rent, you just can't pay rent. I don't think the fact that people can get evicted is the issue. It's just you can double the rent, you can renovate and say, I need you to move out because you literally can't live in a space that's being renovated, right? That they're doing construction and stuff. So yeah, I think there's just so many. It's just all a hot mess.
I think it's crazy how cities aren't doing enough to help people out, like as a whole. Because like here in Downey, the politics are kind of similar to Long Beach, and where gentrification has been happening in the past 4 years. But it's something that's been like it was whitewashed before, then it became more Latino, and then again it's becoming gentrified more than ever.
Yeah.
And this year, ever since the pandemic, the budget for the police increased from 13% to 40% during a pandemic. So we're thinking like, how can this budget increase, and you're not doing nothing to help your community?
We didn't talk about that part, but I know we're gonna wrap up. But that's also to me super interesting that where I live, and I don't know where Celeste lives, but it was just brown people, brown and black people, period, or Cambodians too. But like people of color, like there was no white people. Just to be like blunt about it. We're not colorblind here. So when I started seeing, white folks, when I started seeing the buildings that were where people were getting kicked out, they were renovated, the wealthier people were coming in, white people were coming in, and then there's a whole change of the dynamic of like, like you can't see a brown person out there because you're already thinking they're doing some type of crime. Oh, it's like crime ridden, this city, this block, this little corner. What are you doing? Like you just start feeling policed by the new people that it's like, yo, this is like our hood. We've been here for years. I know who that is. He goes there every morning. I know what's going on, And I think that's also just talk about policing and crime and stuff. When you're bringing in people who don't know you, who don't know the community, who don't know the situation, that's a whole other conversation about gentrification that I think kind of slips through sometimes.
Spike Lee has an excellent rant on it. He talks about how like white people who were moving into Brooklyn like start complaining about his dad playing the saxophone, and his dad has been he was a blues player for a long time, and he's been doing that shit for 50 years. You're gonna complain about people doing their normal things in their community when you're new to the community and start Columbusing. He calls it Columbusing. Start Columbusing this shit. Yeah, like we can continue this conversation because it's obviously something we care about. Obviously, something deeply personal to us, and also structurally, like we all need housing. And our current way of providing housing is just fucking backward and exploitative and extractive and oppressive. That like I have to give a third of my check, a third of like the money I work really hard to get to somebody else just so they can provide me a little tiny space that isn't even like like don't give me the man. I can go on that. So how about we wrap up with this? Any sort of advice? Any things you all want to share about the toolkit? When it's going to come out? How people can get involved with your committee? Anything sort of to wrap up? Because we could definitely talk about this for another hour.
Yeah, there should be a part 2, listeners. If you want a part 2, let us know.
Well, I would just say the toolkit is going to come out soon with just the basics of the process of an eviction, some resources, just like facts about your rights. It's going to be English to Spanish, and then hopefully when we print them, we'll be able to actually disseminate them into the community. So that's cool. I don't think we have a deadline yet, but it will be coming out very soon.
Y'all planning on doing any workshops?
Yeah, I think so. I think eventually I want to do some, depending on the situation, it could be some Zoom workshops again. Later on when things are a little bit more normal, maybe in person, but definitely just have more workshops. And I think even just YouTube or little snippet videos where we can explain it, maybe a little deeper, just certain sections of it, even like a one-on-one, what to do when you first move in, when you first move out, when you need to do a complaint, how do you do that? Maybe I can even provide some like templates, right, on how you can do something like that. But yeah, just like that. And, I welcome anybody really to join if you want to, even if it is just on a volunteer basis, or if there's something, an idea, anything that you think would help. I honestly am all about like just speaking on this and like, you know, brainstorming solutions to this because it's such a big issue. But I think talking about it and seeing what resources we have with our different minds and, you know, stuff that we've lived through, how can we create a solution? So that's my benefit.
Cool. Thanks so much, Anayenssy and Destinie. I'm gonna sort of change a little bit of what you said. We don't want volunteers. We want y'all to become members of our organization. We want y'all to get involved in the work that we do. Like it's a different mindset to be a member. So like, yes, obviously you'll be volunteering your time, but we want you to be part of our community to create long sort of term change. You know, help like be a part of the group that they've started. So like come and be a member for the organization to help us change these contexts so we can stop having these conversations about, you know, surviving and eventually get to conversations about how we can start thriving as a community.
Yeah, so just to wrap this up, if listeners want to get more informed about this, follow us on Instagram at Econ Democracy. Look at our website. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you very, very much, Destinie and Anayenssy, for joining us on this episode. This is basically the situation that we have in Long Beach. Long Beach is beautiful. I love Long Beach. I'm pretty sure Anayenssy does too. We just want to our work is to ensure that the people who have built this city, who have helped it thrive, don't get displaced and get to be part of that progress and that beauty that we have helped build. So thank you, listeners. Again, become a member if you want to get involved in the housing committee, help out with these efforts. And any last comments that anyone wants to give before we close this episode out?
No, just thank you, Destinie and Anayenssy, for your time, and also appreciate y'all doing that, putting it together. And I'm actually looking forward to having more of these conversations with y'all about housing and what the work that y'all are doing and sort of helping the community get informed and also rethink, you know, how we can do housing better.
Because we can do better. We have to.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for our next episode. Take care.